Good morning to all of you. Now, today is our fourth day, session one. Today's speaker is Dr. Aman Arora. Respected sir, please come to our class. And then Dr. Jonathan Chopra, please welcome him. Dr. Arora is a principal scientist at the Human-Centered Robotics and Cybernetics Group of CSIR CMER Durgapur. He is the recipient of the prestigious Japanese government-sponsored fellow MEXT in the domain of robotics during 2012 and 2014, where he was appointed as a full-time research scholar at Kyoto University, Japan. The research was carried out of the development of safe memory alloy, actuated hyper-reactive manipulator targeting applications related to minimally invasive surgery. He has been executed several national and international collaborative research projects funded by DST, DRDO, CSIR, and other research agencies as principal or co-principal investigator. Dr. Arora has several patents, copyrights, and designs registered or filed under his name. Several of his research articles have been published in various peer-reviewed indexed journals and conferences of international review. Presently, his major research interests include soft robotics, artificial intelligence and machine learning based modeling and optimization, ROS, non-conventional actuators and sensor development, specifically targeting assistive and rehabilitative applications. Thank you, sir. Now the stage is yours. Please come.
So, good morning everyone. First of all, thank you, thank you, Sir, for inviting me to this forum. I would be very happy to discuss about what activities we carry out at CSR CMN. Whatever minimal contribution we could make towards soft robotics in a worldwide domain, I'll be very happy to share the intricate details and the journey that we go through during our process of development of these soft robots. So, to brief you about my organization, I come from CMER, that is Central Mechanical Engineering Research Institute. It is one among the 37 labs of CSIR, that is Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. So CSIR basically deals in research in various domains of biological, chemical, engineering, information, and physical sciences. We have labs distributed all around India. CMER is situated very near to Viceroy. We also have a sister lab in Ludhiana that deals with agriculture machinery, which is Center of Excellence in Farm Machinery, Ludhiana. Major research areas in CMRI, we work on microscope technology, MEMS, advanced material technologies, chemistry, electrical, electronics, reaction control, of course robotics, where I come from, and many other domains of engineering sciences. Major activities of robotics, these are some few old as well as recently completed projects we have worked on. SCARA robot, vacuum, mopping heavy water robot, then hyper-dynamic manipulators. We We are also into underwater robotics where we have developed autonomous underwater vehicles that can go up to 150 meters. Remotely operated vehicles that can go up to 500 meters. These are funded by Ministry of Earth Sciences. Then we have been working on mobile manipulators, which we have developed for nuclear power plants in California. We also work for DST sponsored project where we have developed a bottle fin of a fish. Then teleoperated mining robot, which I think first speaker Dr. Deep Narayan might have explained more in detail. These are few notable activities. AUV 500, which is an autonomous underwater vehicle that can go up to 500 meters of depth ocean depth. Then recently we have been into development of a mob control vehicle. So basically these vehicles are used to control uncontrolled mobs, uncontrolled people which are trying to disturb human, like general civilians, or maybe they'll try to break, damage the government property. So basically it came from Prime Minister Office to CSIR, and CSIR finally forwarded to a mechanical engineering research lab, which asked us to develop a vehicle that will be used to control mob. So this vehicle is not now available in GEM, and we have transferred the technology to various companies, and now they are fabricating these vehicles in India. Earlier we used to import these vehicles from abroad. Some projects that recently we have concluded or we have been working on is design of a soft overlay vehicle to assist soldiers, which is my project. I will be detailing about this particular project today. Then human guided impedance control for robotics. Endoscope for medical application. We also work on development of a soft endoscope that will find its application into minimally invasive surgery. Then human intent identification of motion and impedance controller for assistive devices for physical human robot interaction implementations. Basically, my department deals with robots that works with humans. So we call those kinds of robots as cobots. So cobot is a system where humans work along with robots. So earlier what used to happen in the general scenario was robots were large, they were very heavy, they used to be operated in cages where humans were not allowed to go. But nowadays the scenario is very different. Now robots work hand in hand with humans. So we have robot to robot collaboration where one robot is trying to help the other robot, and we also have human robot collaboration where humans are working along with robots. So exosuit, exoskeleton, assistive devices, rehabilitation devices are fall into that domain only. Then another project was development of a actuated exoskeleton based rehabilitation device for human hand, which basically is a hand, exoskeleton where a person can wear it. It will have actuators which will help to assist the person who is stroke affected. So this was one project which was sponsored by CSIR. Then another project sponsored by JCB DRDO is design development of a force effective hand feedback for application in remote handling in defense. So basically this was a project where we were supposed to develop another exosuit, but it was a kind of a master slave. So there would be a slave robot or a slave hand mounted on a manipulator, and we were developing a exosuit. So it was kind of a master slave configuration where master will move its hand naturally and the slave will follow it. It will be tried. Basically this was developed for a remote handling application, such as if you want to defuse a bomb. So you want very fine manipulation there, or if you want to have some remotely operated surgery. So those kinds of applications will require very fine movements of hand. So any other haptic device such as joystick or those kinds of input devices would not be of much use. So you have to have a robotic exoskeleton that a operator can wear, and he can naturally move his hand to manipulate things. So he can have pinch grasp, he can have other fine finger movements. So that will be replicated on a slave device, which is a robot. Coming to soft robotics, we know everybody is trying to mimic nature. Why? Because nature has almost gained, because of evolution, it has almost gained perfection in everything. So if I talk about basic examples like a lotus leaf. So lotus leaf is hydrophobic in nature. It does not allow water to stay on it. So when people try to understand why it is happening, is they found out that they have micro pillars on the surface. because of which the water is not able to stay on it. So what people are trying to do is, scientists are trying to make a paint that has those nanoparticles, that has those properties of nano pillars, which will not allow the water to stay on the surface of a paint. So these paints are very useful into buildings, the exterior paints, right? Gecko, which are lizards. So we have seen how easily they climb over roofs, they climb walls. So people try to understand how it is happening is they try to, when they zoom into their feet, they see there are micro hooks that are there, micro hairs. So because of this micro hairs, they get entangled into the surface, the roughness of the surface. So because of it, they are trying to climb. So very simple example of using this kind of information in our day-to-day life is we have made velcros out of it. So we know velcro is a easy fastener and remover, and it gives us a very firm grip, and it can also get detached very easily. So these are few inspirations that we get from nature. Another is kingfisher. So in Japan, when people were trying to develop bullet trains, they saw that when this bullet train is coming out of a tunnel, there is a very strong shock wave that was coming out of the tunnel, and because of these strong shock waves, there were the glasses of the windows of nearby buildings were getting broken. So this was a very huge problem that these people were facing. So what they tried to do is they tried to see how kingfisher dives into the water and extracts their prey. So using that inspiration from nature, they try to form the nose of the bullet train in that fashion. So it is aerodynamic in nature. Another example, mosquitoes. So they have also evolved over time. We know that as soon as the mosquito is trying to bite, we will try to kill it. So it has evolved over time, it has tried to understand how do you defy that, how do you beat humans. So what they try to do is they try to secrete a numbing agent from their saliva. So there is a large amount of time they will get that they go unnoticed. So by the time they are done with their filling of stomach. Also, they produce micro vibrations when they try to insert the peak inside the body, inside the skin. So because of that, they try to get hidden from what they are trying to do. Yeah, so people try to get this inspiration from nature and try to make syringes that replicates those kinds of phenomena of numbing and vibrations. Woodpecker. You know, woodpecker beats their head very violently over wood. So when people try to study those, they understood that they have a very spongy bone at their back with a very long tongue. Because of that, they are able to absorb those strong vibrations. So soft robotics is a domain of robotics which does not have any rigid structures. They are mostly bio-inspired. They have inherent compliance and flexibility, which makes them very safe to be used with human operators. Also, they find their applications into various domains of search and rescue, and in complicated rehabilitative and assisted devices. So in CMRI, we have been working in two important areas of robotics, which are their basic building blocks, which are sensors and actuators. In actuators, we have been working on development of shape memory alloy actuated continuum manipulator, a soft gripper, a haptic feedback device, a 2 degree of freedom pneumatic manipulator, and a pneumatic artificial master. In terms of sensor, we have been working on development of non-conventional sensors, which are conductive sensitive fabric, sensitive strain sensors, carbon film based force sensors, conductive liquid metal based strain sensors, carbon film based paint sensors. So basically, we are developing these sensors and actuators which finds their application into development of the soft robots. So why this non-conventional sensing is at all required? Why it can't be used conventional sensors? So conventional sensors, like, since I want to take it to my domain now, since we are working on development of exosuits, and I work on lower limb exosuits. So in lower limb exosuits, the basic requirement is to understand where exactly is my limb, where exactly is my leg. So conventional way of measuring it is using goniometers. So we have goniometers that can be rigidly attached to my thigh and the shank, and these goniometers have sensors that can measure the angle between the thigh and the shank. We get to know the joint angle using those goniometers. Another conventional way is to use a ion tube based or fiber optic based sensors. So those are very expensive. They restrict human motion. Also, this goniometers also restrict human motion. We will be restricted only to a planar motion of this knee joint. Another expensive way to do is using motion capture system. So there would be a camera feed, there would be multiple cameras, there would be reflective markers that would be attached to body, and using these markers we'll be able to track what is the joint angle. So these are few expensive means or complex means to measure joint angle. So what we try to do is we try to develop soft sensors, stretchable sensors, which will help us into finding out the same parameters, but without any restriction in motion, and as well as the economics also plays a very huge part into development of these robots. So soft sensor, we have developed a conductive fabric-based flexible stretchable strain sensors. So we used Eontex based, these are commercial fabrics that are available. So we cut it into a specific shape, then we encapsulate it through silicone, and this is what we get out of it. So what use it will have is if you strain it, if you give strain to it, if you stretch it, if you change its length, there will be change in resistance. So we can easily map this change in resistance into the strain that we are giving it to the sensor. Then we have characterized it using a test setup. Another sensor that we have developed is using a liquid metal base. So we use eutectic gallium nitride, liquid metal at room temperature. So we have made these molds. Over this we have poured silicon. So I basically work on silicon. Those are hydroelastic materials. So we pour the silicon. These are RTP silicon, room temperature vulcanized silicons. So it gets cured into room temperature. In room temperature. So when we extract the silicon from this mold, we get channels, open channels out. Right? So each channel is around 1 millimeter thick. Then what we do, we close the channels. We spin coat another layer of silicon. Then we close. Then we put this B section over it. B section over it, and it gets cured. So we close the channel. After that, we inject liquid metal into it. So this is the sensor that we get out of it. So this is again a stretchable strain sensor. You can see this is the process of injecting liquid metal into it. So what we use, where did you use it? Same in case of it is a stretchable strain sensor, right? So it can stretch easily. That means it will not exert much force when we exert it within maybe 500 millinewton or 1 newton. We will be able to stretch it, and it will be able to sense the strain that we are giving to the sensor.
So what kind of equipment are
This is eutectic gallium nitride.
in room temperature? That is
It is a liquid in room temperature. So when we stretch it, the dimension of the channel changes, and because of that, the resistance that the path follows changes, and we are measuring those parameters. This is another carbon integrated film based force sensor. So there is a specific method that we use to fabricate these sensors, and this is how it works. So it is just connected at the tip of this actuator. So when we try to give force to it, it is able to understand the change in force, and we will be able to measure it. Basically, the resistance is changing, and we have mapped the resistance to force using a calibration equation. So coming back to application, so these are the places where we use these kinds of sensors. So suppose I want to measure a joint angle of a knee. So connecting these goniometers or using this expensive motion capture system will make our system expensive, at the same time it will restrict the human motion. So these kinds of stretchable sensors find their application. We will be able to measure the joint angle using these kinds of sensors. Also these sensors, suppose this is a pneumatic actuator, I will explain in detail about it. So suppose if you want to measure the basically contract, when you give pressurized air, it contracts and bulges dramatically. So in order to understand how much bulging has happened, so we cannot use any conventional sensor in these kinds of applications. We have to use a non-conventional, these kinds of stretchable strain sensors only. In terms of actuators, we have developed the three-dimensional bending actuators, pneumatically actuated bending actuators. So there is again a big process how do we fabricate these kinds of actuators. So these are mini actuators that we have developed that measures up to around 1 centimeter in diameter. So it has 3 pneumatic channels that you can see here. So giving pressurized air into each of these channels, making to bend in a diameter space. And we can have multiple combinations. And at the same time, we can have multiple segments connected one over the other. So we can have a multi-dimensional bending, multi-segment actuator. Now we were noticing that when you actuate this bulges, right? So in order to constrain this bulging, we also introduce the reinforcement. So these are nitrile rubber-based reinforcement that we try to give. So this helped us to reduce this bulging. At the same time, it made this get actuated at higher actuation pressures, which helped us to get a increased amount of force as compared to this kind of actuator. So when this bulges, what happens is the silicon hair becomes very thin and it has high chances of getting ruptured. So this helped us in many ways. So whatever I am telling you, these all these all slides are each one paper that we have worked on it. If anybody is interested to go into detail of it, they can refer to those papers. So I'm just telling in one slide, but every work is a detailed work and we have all published it in peer-reviewed conferences and journals.
The outer one is a helical coil.
No, it's a ring, it's a O-ring kind.
Oh.
So it's a O-ring kind that we have given multiple numbers.
How they are connected? Oh, by final cell.
Yes, so there is a complex method how to fabricate it, some multi-step fabrication. First we'll make the inner section with 3 channels, then we give O-rings to it, then we seal the both sides, then we pour another portion of silicon so that these rings goes inside, so it becomes like a structure kind. For another Korea sponsored project, so this was a Indo-Korea project where we were developing a 3-finger gripper. So this gripper is also a silicon made gripper. It has 3 fingers. Again, you can see there are reinforcement that we have used. It's a bending actuator. 3 bending actuators connected 120 degrees apart. So when we give pressurized air to it, it curls and it will try to hold up. So why that is required in these kinds of application is these are drone, and we have a manipulator with a gripper attached to it. So what happens is when we have a hard gripper, this is a soft gripper, right? So it is very soft. When you will come tomorrow to my lab, I will show you this gripper. So it's a very soft gripper. So when you give an impact to it, it just bends. But at the same time, when you give pressurized air to it, it can hold up to around 1 kg. So what happens, and at the same time, it is capable to grip objects of various diameters. It will not break the glass if in case of a hard gripper you want a force to be back. Otherwise, it will not understand whether the force that it is applying to lift the object is sufficient large enough to hold it. If it is too large, it will break the glass. If it is too light, it will allow the object to slip. So the benefit, I was telling, the benefit that we use, that we get by using these kinds of soft grippers into this drone application is, in general case, when we use a hard gripper, generally these drones, what they do is they try to interact with objects on the ground while hovering. So it will come very near to the ground and hover and it will try to pick objects. So because of the interaction forces of these objects that gets transferred to the drone mostly destabilizes and it falls on the ground. So these soft grippers are capable enough to get deformed as soon as the forces are coming to it. At the same time, it is able to do its task. So they we found a very good application of this into these drone manipulators. And this project was done. It was a consortium. So there were 5 labs in India and 5 labs in Korea that was involved. CMRI was one, IIT Delhi, IIT Roorkee, then CSIR CIRI, NL Bangalore. And there were 5 counterparts in Korea. So all 10 labs they combined and they developed many other technologies. One technology was this drone manipulator. So this is the basic operation that we have developed. So it was obviously it is for our drones. It is a remotely operated. We have a joystick that will help us to actuate this actuator. And since it's a pneumatic-driven actuator, so the pneumatic has to be carried along. So the benefit of using these kinds of silicon material is the amount of pressure that it takes to actuate is extremely low. So it gets actuated around maybe 60 kilopascals. And we use these kinds of pipette bottles to refill. These are rechargeable batteries, what we call. So pneumatic batteries. So these are replaceable. As soon it can actuate this gripper up to maybe 20-25 times. So as soon as the battery gets drained off, we get a signal at the ground station, and we bring the drone down and we'll change these pneumatic batteries. So we'll have these charged bottles kept at one side, and whenever there is a signal that shows that the battery is drained off, or the pneumatic battery is drained off of pressurized air. We'll bring it down and we'll change this battery.
Battery charging means here pneumatic pressure is
Right. So charging is what we are calling the pressure. The pressurized air is filled inside this bottle.
how much pressure?
We can fill this bottle to around 8 bars.
80?
8 bars. 800 bars.
8 bars.
800 kilobars.
Battery actually means it is a mechanical energy that is.
Right. Exactly. So for this strategy, we have filed an Indian patent and a US patent as well. So 2 patents has been filed for this technology, and we are still waiting for it to be granted. So other software actuators that we have developed is, again, this was the chemically binded actuator that you were telling. So we have developed one chemical binding as well. So this was a bending actuator, bending actuator with a helical string being wound around its body, the first one. This is a 2-segment bending actuator, then this is a shape and roll bending actuator, pneumatic tactile display. I show on video in the last. This display we have used to develop one exosuit, a hand exoskeleton. And this is my work that I have carried out in Japan. This is a multi-segment shape and roll bending actuator. So coming back to my main work that I've been doing from last 2-3 years is a soft lower limb exosuit. That was this project. So basically it was a DRDO sponsored project. So they had come to us to develop an exosuit that is soft in nature. Soft is what we have proposed. They came to us for our development of an exosuit. So we are developing a soft exosuit. That means it will not have any rigid links, as I have explained in our it will not have any rigid links. We will be using natural musculoskeletal system to anchor it to various anchoring points. Conventional actuators is something that we will not be able to use because it has to be soft. So I will take you along the journey that we have carried out to develop this soft exosuit. So the objective that was given to us was to design a lightweight soft exosuit that effectively improves soldiers' walking efficiency. Walking efficiency means the energy that the soldier spends to walk 1 kilometer would be saved, would be less. We cannot make it 0, it will be reduced. If you talk in another way, the same energy that he spends to walk 1 kilometer, he will be spending the same energy and he will be able to walk more than 1 kilometer, maybe 2 kilometers. And soldiers, they carry heavy backpacks, equipments, and the basic objective is to not change the natural weight of the soldiers. So basic definition, exosuit is a hard covering that covers and supports the body of many animals. That's from. We can take it. Now then maybe I'll come to the main section. So we'll take a break then for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
To 2 broad categories. One is rigid and another is soft. So rigid exoskeletons have various advantages. At the same time, there are cons of using those kinds of exosuits. At the same time, soft exosuits also have advantages and disadvantages. So in very simple terms, rigid exoskeletons are useful because they can take weight of the soldiers because they will have rigid links. So how a rigid exoskeleton looks like, it will have rigid links that the person is wearing. So the most important thing that it can do is it can take weight of the person's body because it has a connection to the ground. So through mechanisms, those weight can be taken down to the ground. But exosuits cannot do it. What advantage soft exosuits has? It will be very lightweight. It will be very easier to wear and remove. It will not interfere with the natural weight. At the same parallelly, when we see rigid exosuits, they have rigid links. We can only have limited joints. We can have only one degree of freedom at the knee joint. So it is very restrictive. In actual human bodies, they have multiple freedoms, multiple degrees of freedom at various joints. We can do twisting of legs, we can pronate sitting leg, but making an exosuit making a joint that can do that, it's a very complex joint, right? So making it in a small space at the same time, in order to make it active, we don't want a passive joint, right? It has to be active, joint, then only we can have resistance out of it. So doing that is very complex. Rigid, they have very exhaustive, heavy to wear, they interfere with the natural gait. It is very slow in response, which nowadays they are made made very high responsive exosuits. They uses power because they are heavy. Soft exosuits, they do not augment much of power. As I told, we are making these exosuits to save energy. So it will just help the person to walk instead of taking the load out of his shoulders. Pneumatic artificial muscles or air muscles. So these non-conventional actuators are becoming very popular nowadays. These actuators were developed long back, almost in 1950s, 60s they have been developed. But recently they have started gaining popularity because of a few reasons. Because they have very high power to weight ratio, and they are very similar to our natural biological muscles. How? Because our muscles, if you talk about our elbow joint, we see when we flex, there are two muscles that are responsible for it. So overall, if you see in a product, there are other tendons that are involved, but talking about muscle, there are two. One is biceps, the other one are triceps. So these are muscle groups. So when we want to flex our elbow, what happens is the biceps contracts, it flexes. At the same time, the triceps has to relax. So when we extend the biceps, it relaxes, and the triceps contracts. So it's a antagonistic type configuration of the actuator, right? And these muscles, they can only transfer forces through contraction, only one side. It cannot extend, it cannot give a pushing force. So similarly, these pneumatic artificial muscles also gives force through contraction. So that is why we call it pneumatic artificial muscles. They are very similar to our biological muscle, but since it is artificially fabricated, we call it pneumatic artificial. They find their application into various advanced robotic devices, walking, installing machines, bio-robotics, medical, aerospace applications where higher power to weight ratio is required, and high compliance as in case of a wearable robot. So talking about the basic principle of operation. So when it is encasted at one end and we subject a load to it, it extends. And when we give actuation pressure to it, it contracts, it lifts up the load. So inside this, there is a rubberized bladder. The ends are, next slide shows that. So you see, application wise, when you hang a load to it and when you give pressurized air, it lifts up the load. Right? The mechanism is like the bladder, it has a rubberized bladder inside it. And over this, there are plates. So it's a crisscross scissor-like mechanism. So what happens is when the bladder is pushed with pressurized air, it diametrically expands. So because of the scissor-like structure, when it diametrically expands, it actually contracts and it transfers the force. So initially when we started to design this exosuit in lab, this is a handset that was very initial when we were trying to think that how the exosuit should look like. So you see there are like actuators that are anchored to, if you want to assist knee joint, the actuator has to be anchored, since it is a contractile type actuator, it should be anchored between the thigh and the shank. So when it contracts, it will pull up the leg. So if you want to extend the leg, help the actuator to extend the leg, what will happen? It should be directed in the front. So both has to act antagonistically. Similarly for knee, for the ankle plantar flexion and dorsiflexion, there has to be two actuators that should be there. Actuation strategy, the plan was, we'll start with the knee joint first. So knee is the simplest joint in terms of anchoring. So we have a stable thigh, we have a stable shank, and we have an actuator that is mounted just between these two joints, between these two limbs, and at all the time it will be free. That means it will not transfer forces. It will only transfer force when the leg is trying to go up, so that it will help the body to make the movement of leg going up. So the energy that the body is spending to lift the leg up would be saved. That was the basic idea. So during all phases of gait, so gait has various phases. It has stance phase, it has swing phase. Stance phase is when the leg is in contact with the ground. Very soon there would be the toe off, heel off, and the leg goes into the swing phase. During the swing phase of the walk is where we thought we'll try to assess the upward motion of the leg. So here you see the assistive force is only coming during the swing phase when the leg is trying to go up. And at other moments of the gait phase, it will be free. So red is where the muscle is free, it is not interacting with the leg, it is free. Why? Because it should not hamper, it should not stop the leg to go down, and it should not give assistive forces where it is not required to give, right? If suppose if the leg is trying to come down and if the muscle is trying to pull it up, so what will happen? There would be extra energy that I have to spend to work on that force. At the same time, it is detrimental in nature, it will make the person to fall, it will force him to spend more of energy to overcome that force because of this actuator. So these, as I explained, these are the basic construction of my actuator. It consisted of an elastic bladder. It's a rubberized bladder that is there inside it. There are braided sleeves, there are crisscross braided sleeves. That general application of these braided sleeves are into encasing those multiple wires. So if you see armored cable or if you see cables which have to be bunched together. So these braids are, if you come to my lab, I'll show it to you, maybe you will be able to relate it. Where do you find these braids to be useful? But we have used these braids into making these actuators in-house. Then there are other blocking boards that blocks one side of the tube, and there is another side that is blocked, but it has a inlet of the pressurized air from where we input the pressurized air and we exhaust from the same port. So fabrication of this pneumatic artificial muscle, our actuator is done in-house. So it's a complex, multi-step complex fabrication process that we follow to make these tubes. We used high-plastic material called silicon, RTP silicons, to fabricate the inner bladder. These braids are commercially bought out items, but we also experiment on. It comes in various sizes, the strand length, the strand number of strands. There are many parameters that we get these braids in. So we have finalized one braid by trial and error, hit and trial method. And it's a complex method how to fabricate these tubes in-house. I will show you why it is important to fabricate it in-house. For fabrication, we have filed a patent on making these tubes in-house. So making these actuators in-house helped us into making it in varied amount of design parameters. So there are, since we make these actuators in-house, so there are various parameters that we have control on. Right? So what parameters are those? Those are the thickness. So I told you it's an inner hollow tube. So the tube has what? It has thickness, it has length, it has material properties. So those parameters are in our hand. Material properties are important here because changing the material. So these are hyperelastic materials, right? So they stretch. It's like a rubberized tube. So these rubber shore hardness can also be varied. So these RT with this room temperature organized silicons are available in various shore hardness. So if I use a rubberized, if I use a silicon that has higher shore hardness, the pressure that the muscle gets activated will be much higher because it will require more energy to expand, and expansion only results in contraction. So the rubberized tube expands in all directions because of the crystal structure of the braid. It diametrically expands and contract axially. Right. So using a lower shore hardness, I will be able to actuate it at lower actuation pressure. The force is also compromised. You must understand. But if I use a higher shore hardness silicon, it gets actuated at higher actuation pressure, and the force is also nominal.
What is the material in that kind of reinforcement?
Where?
That means net kind of thing, that is a reinforcement.
These are braids. So if I did not bring my muscle, but tomorrow if you come, I can show you. These are braids which finds their application into bunching of wires. So okay, if I find it, I'll show you. It is like a mesh. It is like a braided structure, and the structure of the strands are mostly nylon.
In one direction, if it is stretched, then another direction. Just like mechanism.
Yes, it's like a scissor-like structure.
Ah.
It basically is fine for encapsulating wires. So there are multiple bunch of wires that has to be taken along. So they generally bunch it using these kinds of braided sleeves. So they call it braided sleeves. If you Google search it, you will get it on Amazon also.
So means joint. These are
These are not joints. It's a single strand that is bound in a helical manner.
Okay.
So there are multiple helical strands that are mixed
Okay,
into that.
built up design. Built up design.
Exactly. So it is that kind of a design that is commercially available. So we use commercial braids. But there are several options. As I told, it comes in various parameters that people use it for.
So in the treatment of the heart stent, heart blockage stents also used. So I think that kind of material.
Similar. That is nickel titanium. That is ethanol alloy, which is I have also those are XM resolution alloy. So those tents are made of nickel titanium alloy. So the property is it remembers its parent shape. So we straight drain it, yes, straight drain it, crumple it through catheter. We send it to heart artery where the blockage is, because of the temperature of blood it expands and it holds up the artery to collapse. Doesn't allow the artery to collapse. So it's a little different. It is a nylon plate, commercially available, cheap. Stents are very expensive. Those are metallic. These are non-metallic. These are nylon plates. We used 3D printed boards to cast these tubes in house. So this gives us a faster iterative process. So it is very fast. It is easy to make the inner bladder, the main portion, the tube that we use for making that. We have also reduced the chiffon cloth that prevents the braids to get ruptured, because these are high plastic, these are soft materials. So if the tube comes out of the braid, it has a chance to get ruptured. Also, it lowers the bladder braid interaction, friction between the bladder and the braid. Yes. We use commercial components like commercial components that makes us to fabricate these actuators at extremely low price. It becomes very lightweight as well. Then statistically we have used loops at the end. So again, I will say if you come to my lab, I will show you the exact muscles, how it goes. So these loops help us to anchor these actuators onto the musculoskeletal system. So these braids are folded such that it gives us a strong anchoring point. It gives us a loop kind of a anchoring point, which will help us to anchor these actuators onto the leg. So these are how it looks like. So these are these anchoring points. So we have folded these are braids. By the way. So these are this braided structure, and these are those loops that we use to anchor it to. And in these kind of suits, these customized actuators are very, very important. Why? Because it's a mobile system, right? Somebody has to wear it and he has to walk along. So giving any off-the-shelf actuator would be very problematic. Why? Because they may not be optimized to what is the requirement of the suit, right? Those are general purpose actuators. If I take a motor, those are all general purpose motors, right? People can make it to your specification, but those are expensive. And you cannot do design iterations so quickly with those. But using these kinds of muscles, we can do a quick design iteration process. And for a mobile application, the actuator has to be very specific to the characteristic requirement of the system. Otherwise, we will be over-specifying those actuators will be over-specified. So what we have done in our work is we have made our actuator exactly matching to the requirement of the system. Right? So that benefit we get by making these actuators in-house.
So these are two different lengths.
Yes. So just for actually these are actuators, right? So for knowing the characteristics of this actuator, we have to design our characterization setup as well. We do not understand how the input varies my output, and if I do not understand how my input varies the output, I will not be able to use it. For motors also, we need to understand how is the voltage and speed related, how is the torque and current related. So that characterization has to be carried out for any actuator for this as well. So what we have done is, in order to design our characterization protocol, in order to design our characterization setup, we have designed two muscles. Initially, I am taking you through my journey. So these are two actuators that vary only in length. So we have designed this initially to understand how the parameter, how the design of experiment should be, how the characterization setup should be, how the protocol of this we should follow to characterize this. So that is why we have just made two muscles that matches with their other parameters but differs only in their length.
The length is different.
Only the length was different initially. So there were two types of characterization that we have carried out. One is the static characterization. So this is the setup. It consisted of my actuator. Then there is a load cell that is connected on the top. Then there is a DC motor, DC geared motor. There is a pulley. Then we have a proportional pressure regulator. So basically we use this to be pressurized air to this actuator. This motor has a string attached, and basically it will pull the actuator back. So I will show you the complete process. So these are basic components that it had. We used NIPI system to give pressure commands to this regulator. At the same time, we record these forces, we record the extension using the NIPXI system. So all the data of dynamic pressure, the forces, the extension, everything is recorded in one timestamp so that we understand how these inputs affects my output. So this is somehow the experiment is carried out. So what we do is, at time 0 we pressurize this muscle. We give pneumatic pressure to it. Suppose I give 50 kilopascal. It contracts. Now with the spring we will try to pull it back to its natural level. Right? And we try to record how my force changes along with my extension. Right? And we do it, this is a quasi-static experiment, we do it at a very slow rate. Around 30 km per minute. Right? And we do it for different levels of actuation pressure. So we pressurize to different 50 kilopascal, we extend it. Measure the extension and force. Again, the experiment is done, we do it for multiple samples to understand what is the mean and standard deviation. Then we pressurize to a different pressure level, again do it. Follow the same process. So this is how the plot looks like. At different levels of actuation pressure, we get different lengths. So this is length. So you see,
First one is for 150 maximum.
the red one is for 200.
No, the length. Length maximum 150.
The length was maximum, right? Exactly. I remember was 250. So you see, for the red 200 kilopascal, it got shrunk to around 105. Right? It got shrunk to 105. Then, as the force increased, it gets extended to 130. Right? And because of the safety of the setup and other parameters, we have restricted the force to around 175 Newton. That means it can go, if I could give more pressure, it could go back to 150. But the force that it could exert was in tune of maybe 500 Newton. So that is a large amount of force. Around 50 kgs. So same thing happens for other pressures as well. So this was for a shorter piece, we call it P-stem, pneumatically actuated silicon tube artificial muscle P-stem. And this was for a longer muscle. So with this we have designed the contraction, we have derived the contraction action force plot. And from that length we have subtracted how much it has. So basically it is a contraction force plot for both these muscles. So we try to draw some basic conclusion out of this, that longer P-stem has larger amount of contraction at all low pressure load combinations. So these are basic understanding that we would derive out of this experiment. At higher actuation pressure, it exerts a higher level of contraction at any given load. Okay, after this quasi-static experiment, we came to dynamic experiment. So there were two dynamic experiments that we have carried out. So these steps I am showing you so that to tell you that these are the protocols that we have developed to characterize these kinds of actuators. Right? So dynamic characterization one, which is done at constant axial load. So it gives us insight into the step response of my actuator at different operating conditions. And it gives the dynamic performance also serves as a stepping stone towards decision making and designing the control algorithm for these kinds of compact actuators. So the setup was very similar to a static characterization experiment. Only the difference was, instead of having a geared motor, we use standard loops. And other things, the muscle is still there. We have a force sensor that is there on the top. Anyway, the force sensor is giving dynamic load, but it is static in equilibrium. It will give the same force that is hung at the bottom. We also have an encoder that measures the contraction this time, because we do not have a geared motor, so we cannot measure the contraction. So we have an encoder that is interfaced between the muscle and the load. So it measures how much the muscle has lifted up. Same NIPXI we used to give command as well as dynamically record all the parameters that we are giving.
So what is the functional load cell?
It will record the dynamic load. That's what I told you. Generally at static equilibrium it is not recorded because it is all in series. It will give the same load that is hung to it. But dynamically when you lift it, it will try to record that load. Ultimately at static equilibrium it will be same, because it is like a load cell, then a spring is there, then you hang a load. definitely show you the whatever load is getting
Static balance.
static value. But in dynamic situation, it will show you the dynamic load. So this is how the experiment was conducted. So now this time we give a pulse pressure to it. We give a impulsive pressure to the actuator, and it was done to various loads. We hang it to 25, 50, 75, 100, 150, 125, 150 newtons, and then we give various levels of actuation pressure to it. And then at some moment we deflate it as well. So these are few plots that we get out of these actuators. So there will be many plots because it is done at different actuation levels. It is done at various axial loading conditions. So this plot is just exemplary plot to show how it behaves at a axial load of 75 newtons. So here also it gives us some understanding on the contraction, the time it takes to get to that level, and the inflation time, the deflation time, how the length of this actuator varies, these two inflation deflation times, and how much volume it takes, because the lower it volumes, the faster the response of the actuator would be, or the volume of the pressurized air. The second experiment, we call it, is as dynamic characterization 2, which is also called as constant isometric condition. So basically it is used to understand how much force is developed when the motion of the muscle is entirely restricted. That means I block tip it. So the muscle will not be allowed to move. I will restrict the contraction and then give pressure, impulse pressure to it, and try to understand how the rise of force happens. So the experimental setup is exactly the same as static experiment. And XI is used. So this is how it goes. Now this experiment is little related to our actual usage of the actuator. Why? Because how it will work is, at most of my gate cycle, the muscle will be free. There will be one instance in the gate where the muscle will be tight and then it try to pull up. So it is not exactly the same, it is very similar to it. Why it is not the same? It is not blocking. Right? There will be one point where the muscle will get tight and it will try to pull up. So blocking means the leg should not move. So it is not a very exactly matching thing, but a very similar thing that may happen when I put the muscle in the leg. So how this experiment was done in the first scenario, the muscle is blocked it. So I will restrict it to zero motion and I will give pulse pressure to it. Okay? So what will happen? There would be rise of force and it will saturate. Now what I will do? I will release the string to 10 mm and then give it the same step input of pressure. So what will happen? Till the time the muscle is not taut for 10 mm, the force would be 0 and then it will start to rise. So the plot is something like this. So it is difficult to see here, but for some time it will be flat and after that it will start to rise. If I move it to 20 mm, the time till when the force is 0, it will be more and then it will start to rise. In octave, it will rise at the moment you will start using pressure. It has its own dynamics, of course. There is a pressure proportional regulator that is involved. There is actuator that has its own dynamics. So dynamics of the system is already involved. So that is why it takes time, right? So it takes time to saturate.
That flat part is due to the static load.
No, there is no loading in it. So it is like there is a string.
It's due to the weight.
No, the first experiment is, this is my motor and the string is taut. There is an actuator. So the string is totally taut. Now when I give pulse pressure to it, what will happen? It will try to contract, but since it is blocked, it will not move, but the force would rise. Right?
It is like a minimum force then.
No, it will be the maximum force. If you think about it is a maximum.
Initial force is held for some time.
No, it is no. The force is minimal. Suppose I institute 10 Newton. So 10 Newton is the tautness that will the string which is having already. So now it is blocked in. I am not allowing the actuator to move. Right? So now what will happen? As soon as I give pulse pressure to it, it will try to contract. but it is restricted, cannot move. So what will happen? It will try to pull that, and there is a force sensor in line that will measure the force. Right? Another version of this is that I loosen the string so that I allow the muscle to contract 10 mm. So how it goes? It moves 10 mm contraction, the string became taut, and the force starts to develop. So there is a dead zone of force, and then it suddenly rises. The more I am making the muscle to be free to move, the longer time it takes to the force to develop.
Initially, the maximum force is applied, then also the increase.
Right. Yes. The force also
If you
increases.
increment, it will try to contract and expand.
Right. 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 Understood. So these are few understanding that we developed out of this. The force exerted increases with increased level of contraction at all time. The more you allow the muscle to freely contract, the force that it would develop would increase, and the more time it takes to start developing that force. The longer constructed muscle will definitely show higher amount of contraction, so it has higher levels of loud contraction that we can do for this kind of experiment, right? If the longer muscle can go up to 50 mm, so I will have more number of steps. I can release it to 0, that is block step, then 10 mm allow free contraction, 20 mm free contraction, 30, 40. After 50 mm, what will happen? There will not be any force developed because the maximum that it could contract was 50, and I allowed it to freely contract for 40 or 50 whatever. So now there is no force that will get developed. So these were the protocols that we have designed to characterize this actuator. Further, it was important to develop a model using this characterization, right? To understand how the inputs as well as the geometric parameters affect my output. So we have developed physiological based modeling techniques as well as we have tried analytical static modeling techniques, where we have assumed it to be lump parameter model, spring mass damper, and tried to find out. But there were many problems with these kinds of models. It was it fell through only for a very narrow range of operation. Same for analytical models, there were various assumptions that people make to use these models, and using these assumptions, the actual behavior of the muscle and the analytical behavior of the muscle was very different. So we also published one paper on it, how to correct these analytical formulations and try to match it as close as possible to my experimental results. But that was just for the paper. But actually, to model the complete behavior of this actuators, we have employed neural nets. So we have used hybridized neural networks to model the complete behavioral characteristics of this actuator. The objective of this is to, since I told you it's for an exoskeleton, and it's a mobile system, so we have to design this actuator very much close to the characteristic requirement of the system, right? And the parameters that we have in hand is the material, the diameter, the thickness of tube, the length of the tube. So these are all parameters. The pressure I should give it to actuate, the force I should extract out of it. So these are all the parameters that has to match the requirement. And the parameter that I can vary is these geometric parameters, the length, the dia, thickness, and the pressure that I should give. Right? So with these parameters in mind, I should have a complete modeling of my actuator, so that I understand these parameters, how they affect my output of how much it will contract, how much force it will transmit for a given geometric parameters and input pressure.
The such things cannot be designed using CAD.
No, you do not understand how does it model,
Yes.
how the output affects your model.
So every time the experiments are carried out to design such things.
I will tell you how we have done it. It is very difficult to. It is actually predictive model, right? It will predict the output, which is my contraction, how much it will contract. So I have shown you two sizes of muscle, 150 and 250. I do not know how 130 would behave. I do not know if I change the thickness of my tube. These two muscles what we have developed is for a particular tube thickness. If I change the thickness to 2 mm also, I do not know how it will behave. How much contraction it would change, how much force it would develop, how much exertion pressure is optimum for that. And so those parameters are totally unknown. How much length, how is the length affecting my output? And the other characterization, I have only characterized it for limited levels of exertion pressure. I do not know how it behaves in between. If I give 120 kilopascal, how will it behave? How much force it will have? How the dynamics changes with these kinds of parameters is unknown. So for that, it was very important to make a model for it, and it's a highly nonlinear system. So conventional modeling techniques would not work for it. So we have to go for neural network kind, machine learning kind
You
of
change the parameter.
right, to understand how the changes in my parameter changes my output.
How will it behave?
Right, exactly. So that as a system developer, when I tell that I want a muscle that should have these dynamic properties, it should have this kind of force transmission, it should have this kind of contraction. So I should be able to design my muscle. If I do not understand the relationship, I am not able to design my muscle. So the overall exercise is to design a customized actuator so that I understand how my output, desired output can be achieved for a system. Yeah? Okay, so there were various formulations that we have derived to understand what all models should be required for these kinds of actuators. Modeling, you will understand what is modeling. I have carried out characterization, so I am understanding how the characteristics of these muscles are changing. Now these characteristics has to be modeled because characterizations are discrete levels of data points that I have. Now I have to join these data points. I have to understand how my input-output system things are related. That is what is modeling is. How do I understand? That is why we are going to model these characteristics. That is why we should model these characteristics. So there are various terms that we have to see because it's a complex system. So there are various models that we have to develop. So the first model is the contraction model. So how this geometric parameter changes my contraction.
Modeling means actually understanding the behavior.
Exactly. Yeah. So I am directly coming to what are my objectives. The objective is to find out the dependence of PAM characteristics on the constructional parameters and the operating conditions. So how my length of my muscle, the diameter of my muscle, the thickness of my bladder, and the actual pressure and the axial load changes my output. Right? So the parameters that we consider is length, diameter, and bladder thickness. The first model that we have developed is the contraction model, the elongation model. The dependence of elongation length in unpressurized conditions subjected to an axial load. So how without any pressure, if I give force to my muscle, how much it will elongate, and how this elongation is related to my dimension of my muscle and the force and other parameters. Second model was dependence on contraction. So how this contraction varies according to my length, diameter, thickness, pressure, and force. Third was the dynamic model. So how much time it takes to reach to a particular level of contraction for a given amount of length, diameter, thickness, pressure, force, and percentage K. Percentage K means we have not made a model for percentage K is the percentage of my contraction. So if I tell my 100% contraction is K, so how much percentage of K it has reached in a particular time?
The kind of rate.
So if I tell you okay, your muscle can contract to 50 mm, now you tell me 10% of 50 mm which is 5. How much time it takes to reach 5? How much time it takes to reach 10?
Dynamic condition.
Yes, in a dynamic scenario. So this model defines that. This model will help us to understand that 90% of the contraction, 20% of the contraction is reached in how much time?
100% will almost
Right? So each percentage, each level of percentage of contraction, how much time it takes for the actuator to reach. Other is deflection time. How much time it takes to reach percentage K of the deflection. Percentage is nothing but the deflection is 100%. Percentage of that overall 100%, how much it is, how much time it takes to reach that. The third one is a force development. Fifth one is a force development. This is for dynamic characterization 2. So how much force is developed given a allowed contraction of xz. Right? So if m5 is dependent on length, diameter, thickness, the pressure, and hk is the amount of contraction that we have allowed it to go. M6 relates to my dynamic characterization 2.
With time.
So how much time it takes with NZ amount of allowed contraction to reach percentage K amount of contraction. Right? Where T, TH, the pressure, the amount of allowed contraction, and percentage K of the contraction. Same for deflection. M7 is for deflection. M8 is the delay time, the time I was telling. That means if I allow the muscle to fully contract for XZ, what is the delay in development of force? Okay. So dynamically, if you remember, I am allowing the muscle to fully contract for some time. So XZ is that. So how much time it takes to start development of force? Right? So if there is a if I see this is my force contraction plot, so if I call it allowed contraction, so there will be a time where the force will be 0, and then there will be a start of development of force. So this is the delay time. So if I allow it to have a different free contraction, so it will be something like this. So this is the red zone where there will not be any development of force. So when is the start of development of force is what we are interested to understand.
So how can we increase that delay time?
No, it is not about delaying reducing the delay time, because I am trying to understand the behavior of the muscle if I allow it to freely contract.
Yes, sir. But only understand the behavior.
Yes. Delay time, it is not actually a delay time. Don't take it in that sense, because delay time is a time which we are asking, we are giving, right? We are allowing it to freely contract. But we are trying to understand how much delay in force, delay in time in development of force is coming because of that free contraction. Then it had another problem. Actually, there were different sizes of muscles. Further, I will tell you there are different sizes of muscles that we developed. So the maximum activation pressure that gets actuated to was different. So it becomes a highly unbalanced data set. So normal conventional modeling techniques was not statistical modeling techniques were not employed. We used this customized neural network based artificial neural network to determine this relationship. So these are the set of muscles that we have custom developed.
Charger you have sent?
Model it, right? So what we have done is we have designed 18 muscles. So depending on, we have done some internal study and we have tried to, due to the anthropometry of human body, we have tried to understand what should be the maximum length. So we thought that 150, 250, 350 is a good amount of length that can be placed onto this kind of a knee flexion assisted system. So these things are, and we understand how the diameter, because of higher diameter, the delay time would go, because of due to some using some internal study, we have tried to find out how these parameters we should keep the in-bounds and out-bounds of this parameter, the inner and the outer bounds. So we have done some study to understand. So these were the 18 set of muscles that we have developed in-house to model this using the characterization setup that I explained earlier. So these 18 muscles would undergo static dynamic characterizations and then modeled accordingly. And they will undergo this static, isobaric, dynamic, one dynamic.
The different combination.
Each of it. So each of these muscles would be characterized for static, dynamic, one dynamic, two. And we try to make those 8 models out of it. These are all different. These are all combinations of this length, diameter, and thickness. So we have 18 combinations. To understand how these combinations of diameter, thickness, length, as well as
It's a combination of parameters.
yes. So individually each muscle was characterized for all these methods that we have discussed earlier. To understand how this would change my output. So this was detail about data set and all experimental conditions we have carried out these experiments on, and percentage is of contraction 20, 30 to 90% of contraction. Then the allowed contraction was also in that form for dynamic. In that allowed contraction 0, 10, 20, 30, 40 to 80 mm. We have tried to, depending on the length of the muscle, these were basically the experimental parameters that we have used during the experiment. Okay, so we have used this was my testing data set. So testing data, there are two basic data sets in machine learning. One is testing and the another is training to understand how good is my model. So for developing this training data set, we have developed new muscles. So there were newer muscles that were developed. First we have made the model using these 18 muscles. Then new muscles we have developed to validate our model, to understand how good is our model. And these new muscles, what we have developed, we have also tested it for various different levels of activation pressure, different levels of allowed contraction, to understand how good is my model. Fine. So the blue ones that are marked, they are for those sets were used for making the model. The orange ones were used for testing the model, to understand how good is my model. And generally in these kinds of testing, the bounds are to be maintained. Suppose if I say I have designed a model which can take a length from 150 to 350, the testing should be done within that bound, because the model is valid within that bounds of length, diameter, thickness, pressure, allowed contraction, free contraction, whatever, force. So everything is done within that bound. So these extra muscles which were fabricated out apart from these 18 muscles were just to test these models within the bound, to understand how good is my model. So again, these are few numbers to show, and these are the basic conclusion of my model. So we have used neural networks to model these characteristics. You can see the training, testing, RMS along with the units. It is quite satisfactory in terms of what we expect. So now we have a model that relates my input and output, that relates my thickness, my length, the diameter, overall diameter, the activation pressure, to my stroke, the how much it can contract, the time it will take to contract percentage K amount of contraction, the time it takes to start development of force, the dynamic response. So these models relate to it. It's a complex mathematical model, neural network based model. So if I give a particular input, it will give an output of what should the dimensions of the muscles and those parameters. Now comes the part of activity. So now I understand how my input output parameters of my actuator varies. So I can design my muscle. If somebody comes and tell me I want a muscle that has a 50 mm stroke that can exert a load up to 200 Newton, you design a muscle for me. So I can design it now because I understand the parameters. I have a model that relates it. So coming to activity, what it is used for, we have used the treadmill walking, right? For a level ground, it is a level ground walking at a particular speed, 3.5 km, 3 km per hour. So what happens is we have a treadmill. We made many people to walk on it. I'm sorry, this is for a particular person because we made one person to walk it multiple number of times, and we decided 2 points of attachments, one on the thigh, the other on the shank, and tried to understand how is the distance between these 2 points changing with respect to a person when he is walking, right? So application is the assistance, and to understand how a person walks, there are various phases of a gait in that. We have a heel strike, then foot pat, mid stance, then heel off, where the heel goes out of ground. Then there is a toe off, when the toes go off. Then there is a swing phase, the leg is in air. Then goes acceleration, mid swing and acceleration. Again there is a heel strike. This is already explained that we will be using it using the swing phase. Acha. So having multiple points of attachment, so we decided some 4 points of attachment. We did some biomechanical analysis to understand how the distance between these 2, 4, 8, 16 combination of point changes. So there are 4 probable points equally distributed on the thigh, 4 on the shank. So if 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 dash, 2 dash, 3 dash, 4 dash, we try to understand distance between 1 to 1 dash, 1 to 2 dash, 1 to 3 dash, 1 to 4 dash, 2 to 1 dash. So there are various combinations that we try to see how is the distance between these 2 points, because the stroke is varying with that, right? If I ask the muscle to be connected between 1 and 1 dash, so the stroke would be different. 1 to 2 stroke would be different because points are located differently at different positions. Not only the stroke, the force requirement will also differ. Why? Because if the moment arm is larger, for the same torque I require lesser force. If the moment arm is smaller, for the same torque I require higher force. So the nearer I am, the more force requirement will be there. The farther I am from the joint, the lesser force is necessary. But the muscle has to accommodate that stroke contraction. So it has to balance among the force and the moment arm required. Clear?
Sir, in that cycle, 7 different positions are there, configurations are there.
Yes. That is just to show, but we have dynamically recorded it. We record each and every moment. We record it with a high frame 100 FPS camera. So we have the full like data points on how the distance with these 2 point changes when a person walks on a treadmill. So full recording is there. Yeah, analyze it. So this is how it goes. You see, it's full. So any 2 points of attachment, how the distance changes. So the muscle has to follow it. At the same time, it has to surpass at a moment because the distance is reducing, right? So at one moment, the muscle dynamics has to surpass that. Then only it will try to lift up. If it is slow, if it is behind that change in reduction in distance, it will never help. It will never pull. Right? So it has to surpass that. It has to
Faster than.
be faster than the leg going up. So this is a few like snapshot of the analysis. Okay, so this is how the distance between these 2 points at 3 km/h changes. So the whole cycle is of 1.2 seconds. You see, at most of the time around till point number 3, that is 70 or something millisecond. The leg is the distance between 2 points doesn't change much. After the leg starts to go up only, the distance starts to decrease. At one moment it will be minimum. Beyond that it will start to increase back, and there's a release slide, come back to its normal back to close. So for this is the dynamics of 2 points, how it changes with the speed of 3 km/h. Now instead of using this directly on a human subject, it was wise enough to be tested on a tabletop setup. Because we are designing the control of this. It's a very complex setup, human is involved. So we cannot directly put this on a human. So it has to be tested on a tabletop setup first. So what that tabletop setup should do, it should try to replicate the dynamics of the change in distance. So we have designed a setup that looks like this. So basically this motor is mimicking or emulating that change in distance. So you see the distance is reducing and then it is coming back, it is increasing. So dynamics of this walk, or rather the distance between these 2 points, how it changes is being mimicked by this motor. And we have there is a load cell on the top. So we have to design the control of this actuator such that at one moment it should surpass that and it should become taut and start giving force. So the motor is releasing the spring. It is similar to the leg coming up. And my muscle, the muscle actuator should surpass that, should become quickly short and then start to become taut and keep on increasing, getting shorter along with the decrease in length. And there is a force sensor that measures that force that gets transmitted during this emulation. Clear? So we have designed one objective function that ensures that horizontal force is given. There are a few constraints that we try to put in using those same models that we have developed earlier. On that basis, we have designed the construction of our actuator using the models that we have discussed earlier. So the length, the incretion time, decretion line, the length, diameter, thickness, whatever came and actually that came out of model, we fabricate a muscle out of that. To nearest possible whole number, we fabricate the muscle. Then we try to test it on this tabletop setup. we see this is an inverted plot. The blue plot is inversion of this. So it is in, because it has to represent together with the force. We just inverted it. It is same thing. This is the distance plot. This is the contraction plot. How much is the distance that is changing? It is the same plot, just inverted in terms of contraction of the leg. So you see with this new constructed muscle which came out of optimizer, we see that the force. One more thing we should understand, the force that is required should be almost between this point and this point. Why? Because that is about when the leg is trying to go up. If I get force during that time only, it is good force. If I am trying to give a force that is when the leg is trying to come down, it is detrimental. It will try to stop the leg, and the person may fall. So that is highly undesirable force.
Sir, during that part means if there is no force, is it a kind of free fall? Means
It will be natural.
free rotation.
Yes, it will be natural. Otherwise, if I am trying to pull down my leg, if the muscle is trying to give a force, so this is bad and undesirable. So using these parameters when we try to design the control, we saw that we are getting a good force around 13.2 Newton on a tabletop setup, and no force around after the leg is trying to fall. So it is okay, but not that good. So we tried to change the activation strategy. We again redesigned our muscles. Designed our muscles. We tried to test it on a tabletop setup. We saw the good force increased to 29.2 Newton, but we also see there is a bad force. That means there is a force that when the person is trying to put down the leg.
Resisting force.
It's a resistive force, so it's undesirable. Desirable, right? So we again tried to change the parameters, and we saw by changing these few parameters, we tried again there was a optimization of parameters of the muscles that was achieved. We again tried to actuate it, we tested on our tabletop setup. We saw the good force has now increased to 36 Newton, and there is almost negligible bad force that came. So with this final parameters of my actuator, we brought it to a human subject. So this was the test setup that we have designed. So there was a human that bore a actuator onto leg. There was an inline force sensor that measured how much force is getting transmitted during the walk. Then there were insoles of the shoe. So we had used force sensitive resistors. So there were force sensitive resistors that were implanted onto the insole to understand when there is a heel strike. Because we have to find a reference in the gait cycle. The gait cycle, we have to find a reference. So whenever the heel strikes the ground, we will be able to understand that using this force sensitive resistor. Then we had PPR pressure proportional regulators to give actuation pressure to it. We also used the K1s. These are electromyographic signal sensors. So these are wireless surface electromyographic sensors. EMP, call it SEMP sensors. So basically these sensors are used to understand the muscle activity. So basically what happens is when the muscle is getting flexed, the brain signals, there are electrical firings that goes from the brain to the spinal cord and to the muscle, and there are some exchange of ions because of this chemical phenomena. The muscle contracts. So these electrical signals would be in microvolts, but there are sensors that can capture these on the surface of skin. So these sensors we can put it onto the muscle belly, and we try to understand how much is the activity of the muscle that is getting during the walk, that we are getting during the walk. Objective is when do we call it as assisted? When the activity of the muscle is reduced. Why? Because if the muscle activity is reduced for the same activity, if I am walking, I am getting an activity of suppose X. If I am getting X minus 5, so who is doing that work? The muscle. So that is one way of showing that the muscle is getting assisted, because the energy of the activity of the muscle is getting reduced. So these sensors are basically used to understand how much of the activity of the muscle that is happening, and if the activity of the muscle is reduced, I can say yes, the muscle is getting assisted. I am making an assisted device. Also, force is one measure. If I am getting force at the correct time, I can ensure that it is helping the. But activity of the muscle is the final thing. If Because I may say the force is good, it is coming at the correct time, but if the activity of the muscle is increasing, that means I am doing something wrong.
More at a
Yes. So that means it's a complex physiological process. Let's talk about a very complex process. So in order to ensure that I am getting assistance, I am doing help to walking, we are using EMG sensors.
Just like in thermodynamics, you are doing doing work on the system and doing work by the system.
Right. Exactly.
In a cycle.
Yes. So these are the few muscles. Actually, since we are assisting the flexion of muscle, so we used three muscle flexures: semitendinous, biceps femoris, and rectus femoris. So basically, rectus femoris is a knee extender. So when the knee is getting extended, so there is a muscle on the thigh that is assisting in extension of knee, and there are muscles on the thigh at the back which is helping in the flexion of knee. So these are the muscles which we have chosen to put these sensors on and to understand whether the activity of these two muscles are getting reduced and the activity of the front muscle, which is muscle extended, should not change ideally. And we have our inline force sensor to understand how much is the force that is getting transferred to the leg and at what time. So we see that the semitendinous and biceps femoris, which are knee flexures, they are getting assisted because you see the activity of the muscles are getting reduced to some extent, 25 and 40%. But also, since it's a very complex process and we have to design a very complex control algorithm, we see the extender muscles are also getting detrimental effect. That means the activity of these muscles are increasing. That means it is still getting resistance while the knee is getting extended. Right? It is detrimental. It is not good. The 19.6% what we are getting, this is for these muscles are helping the knee to flex, extend. That means the leg is coming down. The increase in this activity means the extension is also getting restricted. So that should not have happened because of control issues. We are facing that. But that is an old result. Acha. Force wise when we see, we also see there is a force that is coming on the other side. So because of that only, the extension are also getting strained down. Further, just by putting muscle onto leg would not help. Here you see we have just used muscle using velcro. In these kinds of exercises, it's very important to anchor this activity, right? And when we flex our muscles, we cannot anchor anything onto our muscle because the volume of the muscle changes. When we flex our muscles, the diameter changes. So we cannot anchor anything very tightly onto the muscle because that will restrict the muscle. If you tighten it very hard, what will happen? Your muscle will not flex. You will feel the pain because the volume has to increase. Then only the joint can move. So we cannot anchor it directly onto the thigh and the shank, whatever I have shown here.
It should be
Just
natural.
Yes, it should be the forces that should be transmitted onto stable points such as the waist or the shoulder. And also for that we have designed the exosuit. So these are two experiments. The whole control has to be carried at the back. It's a very complex system. Everything has to be, the decision of the full system has to be taken at that moment. Right? So the white box that I am carrying at the back, it has batteries, it has control, it has algorithm which are running at the back that understand where exactly is my leg at each and every moment. There are IMUs that we use. There are forces resistors onto the leg that we are using to understand where exactly I am in the gait cycle and when the actuator should be activated so that I get a positive assistance and get minimal negative assistance. So middle one you see there are various snapshots of the suit that we have designed. It has various anchoring points. We have these velcro straps, these belts. So now we know how to stitch also. So we have a stitching machine at our lab. We stitch these straps, these buckles to improve our suit. These are snaps of the few experiments that we have done at the RDO lab. So the system that I am wearing at my mouth, that is a metabolic cost analyzer. Actually, the overall objective should be I should be able to reduce the metabolic cost of the person. So it's a very, very complex thing. Right? So basically this system is like it will take my records of how much oxygen I am inhaling, how much carbon dioxide I am exhaling, what is my body temperature. So these parameters they will use and they will try to understand how much is my metabolic cost. So reduction in metabolic cost is the overall ultimate objective. The whole world is trying to do it, and it's a very difficult thing to do. Nobody has done it to an extent that it is useful. We are also in a like race to do it as quickly as possible, but still we are also trying hard to achieve it. Right? So as I told you, it is a final assessment of how much is the energy that is spent by the body. Right? So that is what. So it will restrict the full, like your breathing. It will analyze everything and will try to tell you how much energy you are spending. So this is some plots of those. So we are not still succeeded into making an exosuit that can actually reduce your metabolic cost, but yes, muscle level assistance is what we are able to extract. So yeah, we are still working on it. Still, I am not going for it. The control that we developed is a complex control. It has power supplies. It has various computational platforms that has to be carried to the back, and there are various levels of actuation strategies and sensing strategies. So everything has to be like gelled together on a single platform. All the sensor actuator data has to flow to one system. It has to be taken. The decision has to be taken at one place. Then it has to be transmitted to the proportional regulators so that commands are actuated to be actuated. So everything we have developed in ROS. So we use robot operating system to transfer the data for communication and taking a firm decision on running this algorithm at one point.
Sir, one question. Regarding the application of this, means is it to produce kind of human robot, or means regarding
Assist
that
device. A device that will assist a person to walk.
Okay. And that is that means energy balance, means regarding the means metabolism, so that gives a balance of energy, right?
Yes, it will give you a overall energy that the person is spending. So idea is without the suit, if the energy spent is X watt per kg, with the suit should be X by 4, X by 3, something.
Kindly explain the metabolic cost and measure part.
So metabolic cost is a measure to understand how much energy the person is spending. So the equipment that I was wearing is a Cosmet, the company name is Cosmet. So what they do is they try to, it has gas sensor, so it takes the and flow meters as well. So they take how much oxygen I am taking, inhaling, and how much carbon dioxide I am exhaling, and few other temperature, body temperature, and other sweat, those parameters. And with these parameters, they have a complex algorithm to understand how much energy I am spending in watts. Yeah. So the idea is, if without the suit, if I am spending X amount of energy, with the suit I should be spending lesser of that.
Means it is proportional to the energy means which is being lost. That is what. Metabolic cost is directly proportional to the energy which
Metabolic cost is the energy.
that is what is the energy.
Yes. And the objective of this suit should be to reduce the energy spent. So basically anybody can wear it and it will tell you if I walk from here to the end of this room, how much energy I have spent. So that is.
So nowadays, doctors are telling that must be more energy. And this is
No, see, for a normal person it's fine, but for soldiers, for a person they really
need for armed personnel, then
yes, because they have to walk kilometers by kilometers with backpack. So the amount of energy they can save is what the objective is. So it has various power, SPC section, controller section. There is left and right. There are different sensors. International measurement units, force sensitive resistors, load cells, proportional pressure regulators for each of these legs. So there are various levels of PCBs that we have designed. Then we have used lithium polymer battery. Then there were proportional pressure regulators that were there at the back. Achha, next, last video you could see that there is a pipe that is going. It was still not a untethered system when I took that last video. But further we have made it untethered. So we are using pneumatic tanks. These are again pneumatic bottles that we carry at the back. That will have a pump. We also have a pump on my back that will give pressurized air. Refill these bottles. Then there is a controller for that, how do it refill. There are solenoid valves that will help us to give pressure from Actually, there is a pneumatic strategy that we have developed. Actually. So this is a strategy. So there are two tanks. Out of these two tanks, only one is used for giving pressure to these muscles. The other tank is in refilling mode. So it gets shuttled. So one time tank 1 is being used, the tank 2 is refilled. Other time tank 2 is filled, tank 1 is refilled.
They are in series connection.
They are in parallel.
And connection.
See, at one point, the tank 1 is recharging. It is connected to pump. Tank 2 is in use. Next instance, what will happen? Tank 2 get empty, tank 2 will be recharging, and tank 1 will be filling.
I thought that single tank will work for recharging only, the other tank will work for using use only.
This is what.
Is their requirements? Vice versa in their work.
Yes.
So these are part of backpack.
This is the back of the backpack. This is the backpack. So this is a.
So what should be the weight actually? This carrying?
Presently, the weight is around 3.5 kg.
So they have to carry.
Yeah. So
Carrying this will also means we reduce the weight so that.
yeah. See, our objective is to negate the weight and then provide assistance. This is the
Because
basic.
that also related to energy they are
Of
carrying.
course, of course, of course. So it has to negate the weight, extra weight that they are carrying because of the extra things that they are putting
Yeah,
in, and then give a positive assistance.
Some person will carry guns and other equipment at the back plus this weight.
So that is what the objective is, to negate that and then give assistance. Right? It has to happen that way. See, if you want some energy from outside, it has to have batteries, it will have controller, it will have
They
actuators.
have to.
It has to be there. But a good system is something that will negate that and give positive assistance. That is a perfect system.
The comparison actually with the.
Right. See, car also has battery. Car also has engine. So the weight is extra 800 kg. That is to be carried along. You are sitting inside the car. So that 800 carries much, maybe 10 times more than your weight has to be carried along with you. But car is efficient enough to overcome that and take you along. Isn't it? So that is the overall objective. So anything extra would be definitely bringing weight into the system. But the ideal system should negate that and then do the work whatever is required.
Saving energy.
Right. So this is a new box that we have. So there are pneumatic tanks that are there. There are the middle one is the pump that we have. Then next to those are solenoid valves that are used to shuttle my primary and the recharging and the uses tank. The present architecture is more complex. We have more computation unit that will help us to understand many more parameters of human, because humans are very unpredictable. You know, suddenly initial test what we have shown is on a treadmill, right? But once a person, and in treadmill you cannot define your speed. You have to walk in the speed where the belt is driven. If I set it to 3.5, you have to maintain 3.5.
Also, the roads are also not perfect.
Yes.
Somewhere I have to put more pressure, somewhere lesser.
So on a treadmill, the speed has to be basic. I am not talking about other things. So the basic speed has to be maintained, right? And changing in speed will change your stroke. Will change your. If I walk at a different speed, the stroke of the distance between these 2 points changing would also change. The control strategy has to change. If a person tries to take a left turn, everything would change. Right turn, everything would change. Up the stairs, down, so everything would change. So it's a very very complex control that has to play along. So till now, before this slide, everything was done on a treadmill. So the wearer does not have any option. He has to maintain the speed. He cannot take a left turn, right, and he cannot stop. If the person stops, it should not happen like I am stopping and the muscle is trying to pull my leg up. Isn't it? So that's not.
Synchronized.
Yes, it has to be synchronized along with the intention of a person. So identifying a human's intention is also a very very crucial information that the exosuit should have, and it's a very complex system. Right? So everything till now I have shown is on a treadmill. But once you come off the treadmill, you can stop. I am walking at 3 km/h. That is also not maintained. Sometimes I walk at 2.5, sometimes I walk at 4. So the control has to be adjusted along the person, along with the person, because any wrong actuation would basically result in spending more of energy. It has to happen in sync. It has to be, the control system has to identify the intention of a person. If he is intending to stop, if he is intending to take a left turn, right turn, everything has to be identified. And accordingly, the control has to be tuned according to the control has to change on the fly. I cannot make the system person to stop and then put a computer and change the control algorithms and then ask him now walk at 4.5. That cannot happen. So this control optimization tuning has to happen with human in loop. So the person has to wear it. The control parameter, there are few. It's more very integrated thing. I don't want to. I just want to touch it and go. So when it has to actuate, that has to happen with the human. So I cannot offline tune it and then put those parameters in the system and then it will run. No, it cannot happen like that. So it has to be tuned with human in loop. Human has to wear it. Human has to walk. There are wrong forces that the system will give to the humans. The system will understand that's a wrong force. It will try to correct itself and decide a tuning parameter. So this tuning has to be done on a human. So the idea would be the person would wear it. Any person would wear it. I cannot design these control parameters for myself. It is for a multiple general which has to be done. So the idea is person will wear it. He will walk on a treadmill for 5 minutes at whatever possible speeds, maybe 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5. The control parameters for each of these speeds will be tuned on the fly. He will walk for 2 minutes for 3.5 km/h. The control would give random command signals. It is not random, it is Bayesian optimized. There is a method called Bayesian optimization which we employ to design these tuning parameters. So for a person, we will walk for 2 minutes for 3.5 km speed. These parameters with the speed, the actuation parameter would be decided and stored. Speed would be changed. Again 2 minute walk for a 4 km/h treadmill. Then tuned parameter change, stored. So everything is done on a treadmill for a 5 minute or 10 minute walk. So now for that person, for that configuration of hearing, those control parameters have been stored, tuned and stored. Now the person comes down to a level down.
These are training.
Yes, this was training. Because subject specific and anchoring specific also. Today I am wearing pant in this side, tomorrow I can wear it little high, depending on the construction of my pant, depending on the construction of my shoes. So everything is very variable there. So it has to be, you wear it and then you tune it. Now when you come down from the treadmill, now it has to be, you have to identify the speed because it has been speed tuned. Right? So this has been tuned for speed. Now the next step is to identify the speed of a person when he is walking. So we have developed few algorithms depending on the anthropometry of a human, maybe the thigh length, the shank length, the foot length, and the weight. There are few parameters that we have designed. Again, we have designed a neural network that will help us with this anthropometric parameter. Will try to help us to identify the speed of a person in real time. So we carry Jetson Buddha enabled boards on the back that will help us to identify the speed of the person when he is walking. And with these speeds, I know what tuning parameters I should. So speed is identified, the tuning parameters have been trained earlier. Identifying the speed, the tuning parameters has to be plugged in, and the control system of the system would work in that way. So we have another paper on this. So if anybody is interested, this will help us to identify various where exactly are we in the gate cycle. So this is another different thing. So these are basically so we have developed one. Dr. Amit will be coming on last session. So he will be telling more about it. So basically, it's a soft glove that we have developed. He basically works on hands. I also contributed, so I can show you a small. He will also show you a glove. Yeah, it's a soft glove that the person can wear, and it is basically for virtual reality activity. So a person wearing a glove, there is a virtual environment which will have virtual objects. So when I flex my hand, the virtual hand in the computer also flexes. If I go close, it will go also close. If I flex it more, it will hold the bottle, and the stiffness of the bottle is identified here. So there are actuators that will help us to identify the stiffness of bottle. It will help us to manipulation of various objects.
So how this is happening by sensor
the stiffness of the object is set in virtual environment. Right? The hand bending is getting sensed at the master glove, which the person is wearing actually. And there are motors which will help us to stop the hand. So if the virtual hand is holding something, the motors will stop the hand, sensing this. And if I try to move more, I will be able to understand the stiffness of the body. So there's a video on so these are those sensors that we have developed in house. So these are bend sensors that you can see. The golden one, the copper ones. There is a white tracker that we use, and these flexible bend sensors are developed in house. So this is the method how we develop these sensors. We use a constraint to velostat, then that is encapsulated with two electrodes on the inside and then encapsulated inside. Then we use static dynamic activity to understand how these bend sensors are behaving in static and dynamic scenarios. Then we design optimize these sensors to understand which design of sensor is well suited for this kind of bending application. We have few attachments that will help the sensor to slide along. Other we cannot restrict it. These sensors are used for metacarpal and proximal joint. There is tactile display that are there on the fingertip. So this is the design of the tactile display. So this is also made in house. So tactile display means it will try to, suppose a virtual object is trying to touch something. So there are 4 tactors that are there on the fingertip. So if the virtual finger is trying to touch something, so that feeling of touch is also coming to the hand, to the fingertip as well, not to the hand. So these are all characterization of this tactile that we have developed. Goes like this. So there are 4 of these that are there on the fingertip. So partial touching, full touching, those pressures also can be. So this is the configuration. Then these are motor tendon sleeves that are going. Those are pulleys behind that. Those are motors. So they will basically try to stop the hand with virtual, in sync with the virtual environment. So that is the virtual environment. So you see, whatever this is doing, the virtual hand is repeating that. And the person is trying to hold it, but because of the stiffness of the virtual block, it is not allowing the hands to close fully. So this task was to differentiate between the stiffness of object. So the person is trying to touch the 3 blocks with varying stiffness, and depending on the stiffness, it will try to rank it in various baskets. So you see, index, thumb, middle. So those are all tactile feedbacks that we are getting on the fingertip. So that is represented by those blocks. And these are those tactile displays that you can see. When the hand is touching, this is for thumb. So whenever the thumb is touching, you will be able to see a bubble that is coming up. That's a feedback from the virtual environment. So
Is there any practical application here?
yes, because
Utility or
yes, generally these are useful when the person is rehabilitating. So the person is not able to open because of stroke, he is not able to close. So rehabilitation, he wants to have some feedback from the virtual environment. So those things are there. Or remote handling of object. This is for a virtual case, but the same glove can be used for a remote handling application. There is a surgery that is happening somewhere in the world. Right? So the robot is having those sensors. So this sensor feedback of touch, the position where the robot fingers are, so that can be felt at a remote location. So there are various applications of remote handling, virtual reality, interaction. People nowadays are playing games in virtual reality. They will have a racket that you can play. So those feedbacks you can definitely get. So this was all from my side.
timing up to 12.
Okay, then you can somebody who is discuss anything can talk about it.
Any query?
So it's a very clear that I couldn't discuss because of time and the variety that is there. So if anybody is interested, they can contact me. My details are down there. If anybody is
I
interested,
think we are going to visit more your lab.
Yes. So the suit in action may not be demonstrated, but I can show you parts of it. I can show you actuation, muscle being actuated, whatever actuators we have developed. So in action, we can show you those things. Whatever basic explanation I can do, I'll try to do it. But the suit in action takes a lot of time and lot of effort to appear and get to work. And it's a complete system level work, so it requires too much effort to run. And if everything is running in sync, then only it will show effect. Otherwise, it may not be visible.
Sir, initially you actually displayed that helping the soldiers, right? And finally it means that is also applicable for a person which is unable, who actually is unable to means walk or may hold some objects. So these are actually means applicable to broad spectrum.
Yes. Actually, we have designed it for a able bodied person. Somebody who is able to walk, but is not having enough strength, or he wants to reduce his metabolic cost, energy. Then for that it was designed. But definitely it has enormous application because we are developing actuators. So whatever application, whatever stroke, force, application requirement happens, we can pursue that. So applications is unlimited.
So what about weight of that backpack?
That should be reduced. We are at 3.5.
Normal weight, so that along with the all assembly or whatever.
My expert weighs 3.5 kg.
3.5. Yes.
5 kgs. But definitely we have to do a lot of pieces. It's a very complex system. So there are many ways we can reduce the weight. That has to be optimized in all respects. It can be optimized, but we have not worked on it till now. But yes, we understand weight is a big concern in these kinds of mobile systems. Yeah. See, weight is not a problem. We can have a walk along robot along with it. So really, the issue is there can be a robot that can walk along, and these heavy backpacks can be put onto the robot's back. There can be a multi-legged robot, four-legged robot that can walk along a person, and these actuators can be onto the person. These heavy packs can be put onto the robot. So those things, possibilities are there, but yes, ultimately the weight has to reduce. 1.5 to 2 kgs has to come down, but bringing down weight is a challenge. Still, in many terms, I could like optimize my actuator, but there are other things that has to be optimized. The pump also needs to be optimized. There are the system everything. So if everything is optimized, then only you can bring down the weight. There are pumps. These are standard off-the-shelf commercial pumps, not only for this kind of application. There are solenoids that I use, commercial solenoids. So some constraints were there which I couldn't solve, but yes, it's a green area to work on.
So the air that is used inside of it, it is converted with air.
Yeah.
So if the air is converted to hydrogen, maybe it will be beneficial for reducing the weight.
Yes, that is why for hydrogen is flammable.
And it's also that, but this the weight will
See, now the pump what it is doing, it is taking atmospheric air and it is compressing it.
But I don't think means by replacing
Air
hydrogen
will
with air, much weight will be reduced because the
mass is not. And otherwise also air mass is not much. The mass
Exactly.
is because of the pump. If somebody can work on making a lightweight pump that can help you to reduce, like compress the air to 7 bars.
Sir, ultimately, whatever we do, we require energy. So energy will be from battery always, and battery is heavier. So that
these kind of systems, the best option is definitely everybody knows if I make up the best battery possible, then also my battery lasts for 1 hour. If I make a very good battery, it may last 5 hours. You know, there is a limit to it. Or it can solar charge it, or it can run up to maybe 10 hours. But at the end, it will go off.
Yes.
The objective of making these kinds of suits is like the ideal way to do it should be transparent when not in use. That should be the thought. Transparent in the sense, if it is in use, it should assist. If it is not in use, I should not feel something is there. So transparent in that sense. It should be transparent in walk, transparent in load. So if that transparency is brought into, these all factors would go off.
Yes, sir.
That is one way of doing it. It
Because
will
in case of
finish off.
body, we will take some foods and that will give us an energy. But in this case, it is not going to happen. We have to give some
Right.
energy from the outer source.
Right.
We have to locate the particular area where the robot is there. We have to charge over there.
Of course.
In this way, we have to.
Right. So that is what I am saying. That will go off. The batteries would get drained off one time.
Yes.
But the point is the best part would be in future if we can make it transparent when not in use. I see soldier cannot throw it off if it is not working. It works for maybe 20 hours, now it is drained off. But soldier cannot throw it in road and walk off. So he has to bring it back.
Yes.
So if it is transparent in the sense if it is almost no road to him, he will not have any problem in taking it back and charging it. So those things are very futuristic we have to work on. So one time, one moment it will get off. You use solar, night time even not all batteries may get drained off. But soldiers cannot throw it off. Anybody cannot throw it off. He cannot throw anything off. So making it transparent when not in use is the ultimate thing. What people talk about.
Initially, that should be overcoming its own weight and assist. And in future, we should try to reduce its self weight so that it can assist in better way.
Right?
The transparency in the sense is like it can be handy. Means if I don't need it, I can take it up, pack it in the bag and bring it home.
That removing, I do not, for soldiers it is not easy to remove in the time when they are using it. So transparent I meant to say like I am wearing it but it is not obstructing me. So it is almost transparent to me. It happens with it, there are many other factors like when the person starts using it, it becomes transparent to him. If there is a line on my phone, if I keep on seeing it, it will become transparent one time. I will not be able to notice. Somebody else notices a line, your phone is having a line. It is there but I am not able to notice it. It becomes transparent in that form. I am wearing it but it is almost transparent.
Like I am getting this pain with me, it's like transparent.
Yes. Something of that sort. But it will take time.
It's a kind of non-interacting.
When not in use. So, anyways, you can please note down my details. You can contact me anytime. Just WhatsApp me or mail me or visit me. And I'll be more than happy to discuss any other topic. Okay, thank you.
Sir, last slide.